studios in the Xtreme Palace, just west of Orlando, Florida. I have from the Great Midwest, RDV, and RDV. It was a hot one here in Central Florida, even by our standards. The field temperature where I was at, of course, west of Orlando,
Mhm.
118, and no rain at all, too, like we normally have. So, again, by Florida man standards, just another day. But what makes things really good when they're really hot? How about a dive in the ocean with a killer shark movie? Wannabe, because we're talking about Meg 2 tonight, and as we've said
Uh,
here before, the Meg is to me kind of bad, and this movie sucks. But it was better than the first one, and there's going to be some interesting things about here I'm going to talk about that surprised me. What's your take on it?
I get it's a mixed bag for me. As far as there's parts I liked and parts I didn't care for. Parts I thought was kind of dumb. Like there's a major character they kill off from the
Mm-hmm.
first movie. I don't know if it was because they couldn't get her in, but it's what's her name is the Lee Bing Bing.
Yeah.
She's plays the mother of the girl. This who's now all grown up. It's the same girl from the same actress from the first one. She's all grown up now. It's supposed to, like, I guess, like, it's been 5 years since the events of the first one. So now they have all this new tech and stuff. Now they're gonna go back to the trench. The only one who basically stuck around is there's two actors in here. Cliff Curtis,
Yep.
and I'm trying to remember who the other one was. Um, what his name is offhand, but he's Paige Kennedy. He's yeah, so he stuck around for this one, and I gotta say it is a whole new cast. No, there's no Ruby Rose. For those who hated Ruby Rose in the first one, don't worry, she's not in this. Uh, but it's basically a reboot. It feels like a reboot of the first one. Uh, Rich person thinks she's gonna get rich off of it by they go to trash. She's gonna mine some stuff, and she's like, whatever, doesn't care. But then this movie, not only is it's one of those plots, but it also turns into uh, shark versus octopus. Shark. uh,
Sharktopus.
yeah, giant squid versus megalodon, and then not only that, there's three megalodons, and then it is just literally this is Jason Statham starring in a sci-fi TV movie that
You
somehow
know,
made it in the theaters.
that's an interesting description because we've covered plenty of B movies here on Extreme Movie Show and canon films. I'm looking at you, but I love them. And
Imagine
the
if
thing
Chuck
here,
Norris was in a movie like this in canon films.
well, but here's the thing. Well, he was the A-lister for them, and so
Yeah,
to your point, the transporter guy is supposed to be the A-lister here. And the problem with this movie is it's a couple things. First of all, it's a Chinese movie, meaning it's made for the Chinese audience. So there's a lot
yeah,
of stuff included in there, and it's very
it
watered
was
down. And we know that
co-produced.
that
Yeah,
happens, and
yeah,
okay, that's fine. So I don't mind an international cast and all that, or people that are really popular over there that I'm going, well, I don't know who the hell this jabroni is or whatever. That's fine.
yeah.
But at the same time, too, since it really wasn't a political movie too much, I go, this whole movie, when I started watching it, I felt like I didn't like this movie at all, and I think it sucks up until like the last 20 minutes, which I'll call Fun Island, and we'll get to that towards the end.
Hmm.
I felt this movie did a very poor job of deciding what kind of movie it wanted to be. Did it want to be an action film? Did it want to be a drama? I thought it looked better start to finish than the first Meg,
Yes.
without a doubt. And I actually kind of liked the opening gambit a little bit, with the whole prehistoric scene and all that too. Then that was cute. That was fun. That was
Hmm.
entertaining.
Oh my
But then it
gosh,
seemed kind of gloomy-ish or whatever, and I'm like, okay, what are you trying to be? And they spent forever underwater in that situation where they discover this secret mining
yeah,
layer, right? And again, it doesn't have to be a big deal about the plot, but okay, we get it, we understand it. And of course, the female ends up being the bad guy, and capitalism sucks, blah blah blah, whatever it is they say. It's enough to ignore, but it's like, okay, it's a fucking shark movie.
hmm,
Let's make it a fucking shark movie. Let's not make it where it's 30, 40 minutes where you don't see much of the shark. And they talk a little bit about some of the things, like the guy introduces
yeah,
how he's been training him, right? He has the clicker and all that, like you do
yeah,
with dogs, let's
yeah.
say.
Raised
And
as
of
a
course, that
puppy.
ends up
Yeah,
being a big thing at the end. So I didn't even that didn't even bother me.
no,
Like I say, I thought it looked a lot better.
an hour and 56 movie.
Yeah,
It was really too long.
it
Um,
dragged on.
uh, but yeah, so this movie, basically, the way I describe it, is an action comedy. They even throw the dog in there. The dog from the first movie.
Yeah.
Same damn dog was in here again.
Right.
And I'm thinking, like, finally, could the dog die? Because, I mean, you can't play the same joke twice. And it would have made more sense. I would have laughed if the dog would have, like, bit the dust, you know? But,
No.
because
Teasing dog
now,
violence is
I,
never cool.
so, like I said, they show it just basically, yeah, it starts off, like, the movie starts off in prehistoric times, shows, like these little creatures feeding on the corpse, and then these basically what you call them would be Kumero dragons come out and
Yeah.
start feeding on it, and then they go in the water, and then they hear something. You're like, oh shit! So they fly back the other way, but then this T-Rex comes out, grabs one of them. They're like, you see the other ones just go the other way. They're like, screw this. And then the Meg jumps out onto basically onto the beach like an orca whale, and it just eats it. Grabs the T-Rex out and then drags it back in the water, chomping it, and that's how it starts. Now, the good thing is that I was like, "What is the point of this?" And then I realized they brought those creatures back, the Komodo dragons, which I don't understand how they could survive underwater for all these long. Apparently, they evolved, they adapt, evolution, whatever.
Yes.
So, but yet the dumb thing about this movie, because this is like every sci-fi horror thing. Oh, these CG monsters can now breathe on land after all the millions of years. Now they're able because what happened was they went down there to test these new suits stuff and the mining thing down in below the thermocrust. And because these idiots were mining down there, he's like, "Oh shit, we can't let them find our operation down there base." So he basically sets up the detonations, killing the guys, and causes a huge explosion that causes the thermocrust basically, which keep the cold line that keeps anything from going up from the bottom up to the top, creates a giant hole, so allows the three megalodons to get out, along with this giant, huge squid. Which I gotta say, squids are cool, man. I like
Squids are kind of cool, and squid is delicious too, by the way, if it's done right.
Wow, I'm sure this one was well done towards the end. But overall, though, a lot of CG in this movie. We just did a thing on Xtreme on last Friday about CG.
Correct.
And I'm gonna say the CG in this was like, eh. Now, when they showed the octopus, in the water, you could see some of the stuff, but like the tentacles outside of it, I thought was kind of cool. I would have personally, I would have went with the whole deep rising the tentacles in the ship. That was, I think that was a more cleaner CG than this one. But the megalodon, the baby one, the one the guy's training, the May's, her uncle, now he's in the water there, and he's clicking. He's like, "Oh, 2 clicks, tells her go away. 1 click tells her come to me." And when it goes right next to him, you can see it, and just anytime they show the up close of the megalodons, it looked really like a shark. It looked like I'm just watching, just a Shark Week.
They did do a better job with that, I think. Absolutely.
I thought it was really good for that. But overall story, like I said, it stretched on too long. It was a cliche thing about a billionaire and a lady betraying, basically was there funding of them, betrays them, wants to kill them. And then like the girl who works for them, she's like the IT girl, basically like a Ruby Rose. She betrays them by damaging the sub, and they're gonna kill them all off at the bottom of the ocean because now they basically we're gonna leave them to die down there. The most dumbest thing was the guy, the bad guy. I forget what his name was, like Pedro or whatever his name is, or
just call him bad guy.
Yeah. Either way, his character, Montez. That's what it is. Yes, Montez is he has a vendetta against Jason character because Jason Statham, just going around and jumping onto these cruiser ships or dumping illegal toxic waste and exposing them. So this guy ended up being in a prison for 3 years, and he's like, oh, so he wants revenge. He secretly with Lisa, the new girl who basically the IT girl, and she, I gotta say, the just rewards is when you find out what she did, and then she's behind the glass. You knew exactly she was gonna get it, and it was great.
Yeah.
And then then they make the super thing is because this comedy thing. He's on the phone with the big bad boss, played by the actress who plays Sienna something, whatever, Gallery, whatever. And she's like, "You crying?" He's like, "No, I'm not crying," because he just lost his girlfriend. And he's like, I'm thinking like, oh my gosh, you're a hardened criminal. Now you're crying. It's like, oh, it's so bad.
It
Um,
is, and that's the point because, they spend a big amount of time early on after Jason Statham's action bit at the beginning there with a waist, whatever. Okay, he gets the show off a little bit, fine.
yeah,
Um, but when they're underwater, I'm like, okay, CGI or not, yes, this is the same thing as sandstorms and
yeah,
anything that's like the Godzilla movies where they do a lot of the CGI at night to hide a lot of their mistakes, right? Just to get it
they're
done. It's insulting, right? Show off, do it in the middle of the day, right? But they
yeah,
spend a lot of time underwater, and you're like, hey, they kind of got a nice little atmosphere thing going here. They're not being too campy or goofy. This tone's not too bad, but then they'll throw in, like you say, some line like this, and you're like, what?
yeah.
Okay, and
Like
then towards the end, though, when they manage to escape, I'm not even going to go through the whole stupid thing of Jason kind of like learning to breathe out of his nose, on the way
oh
up.
my gosh,
Don't
yeah.
even get
So
me started.
the
But when they get
pressure,
up to when they get up to the main base there, it looks like an oil tanker kind of. All of
this,
a sudden, the African American dude, he's like,
yeah,
yeah, I got my action pack here. And the other dude's like, what? He's like, yeah. And then he goes like on a monologue. Everyone's thinking this is the coolest thing. And he goes, yeah, after the last time I got my gun and I got this and I got that, and you can't blah blah blah. Then turn on bam bam. And I'm like, okay, now we're funny. I mean, it's just the tone was very inconsistent.
it kept changing. Like I said, it was more action
Yeah.
comedy. They want to do horror suspense. Suspense, not horror. Suspense is the best word because you're underwater
It
on the
almost
trenches, dark,
worked.
they can't see.
It
And
almost
and
worked.
it literally, if they would have got rid of the comedy, if the more suspense, it could have been the scariest. As 47 meters on down, our cage. No, seriously, I mean, the whole bad guy being the woman, the billionaire, it would have made more sense if it had been like the bad guy Montez is actually he's like, you know what, his girlfriend dies, he's like, I'll get a new one, I'm gonna be rich, and then when he's supposed to protect the rich girl, he's like, protect me and stuff. He's like, no, you're expendable.
Now you know what made this movie really cool. If you have Jason Statham right at the beginning, and it's really cool action sequence with one of the sharks, like he's saving the little Asian girl, right? The little cute
Yeah,
Asian girl, right? He gets swallowed up, like in the first 15 minutes of the film. So everybody's got to rally around him, try to find out what's going on. They go through everything, and at the very end of the movie, when the three megalodons are there, um, it turns out that he didn't die. He just got swallowed, and they like cuts his way out or something stupid, like Moby Dick or whatever like that. They could have went full on camp and done something absurd like that. And because it's Jason Statham and all those movies of his we've covered, it would have worked. But here, like I
yeah,
say, you and I are both saying the tone's inconsistent.
yeah,
They end up basically regrouping, and they recognize that the three big megalodons are going off to an area called Fun Island. And you see like this little sign that says Fun Island, and it looks like it's over there in the Philippines or
yeah.
Malaysia somewhere. And this was actually campy and kind of fun when you check your brain. And it was the last 20 minutes. And if most of the
Well,
movie had
that's
several scenes like this, it would have been fun.
that's your sci-fi movie. That's Piranha.
Exactly. That's your goofy chiller movie of the week or whatever that you watch, and they give you what you want, and
Yeah,
they make no bones about it. I agree. This last little bit was the pacing was different. It's like they started running instead of jogging, and they kept doing a bunch of silly stuff like the jet skis. Okay, they had different action things going on, right? They had
mhm.
Statham having to go after the three of them, and he's got the three harpoons that he has to kill, which is really stupid. But we get it, and he's doing it.
Yeah,
But there's the other
explosives.
stuff going
Yeah,
on the ground, right?
yeah.
Um, and the other guys are chasing them. So hey, we've got a lot of different action things going on, and it's pretty darn cool. I mean, by Meg standards, of course.
Yes, yes. Um, they're playing Barracuda too, in
Yeah,
the
exactly. That's that. See, that kind of stuff is cheap, but some stuff that
mm,
can work, and that's appropriate
yeah.
for what they're doing here. It's a great
So,
little tune.
but I gotta say the best scene of the whole entire movie is when they first go down in the trench in those two new prototype subs.
Hmm.
They're down there and they're coming across, and the thing is that uh, the baby Meg, the one Harriet, her name is, the female one, the one that the or Chinese guy was basically raising as a pup, training it. It followed him
Yeah,
because they have a bond, so it
yeah.
followed him like a good girl and protected its master. Its alpha later in the
Hmm.
movie, but that was scary because it was following them down. It followed them through the threshold. You're like, oh shit, and they're like, it's like, it's all we know about the Megs. they're not good. They will eat you, you know. And as they get down there, the whole thing with then you realize there's a bunch of them, and you see the one that's at the battle scarred one, the one that looks like it's just like it's like if you ever watched Tarzan, it's the
Yeah, the
one
older they
ape,
are, they're
the
all
one ape
stronger.
that has a slash through his eye. He's
Yeah,
blind.
yeah.
It's like, oh shit. This one's seen these alpha, and then not only is that down there, they're like because there's what happens because guy there's explosion. They're basically they're both their subs are pinned by debris. They have to get an extra suit. So they have to walk to this this underground facility. There's underwater facilities, research facility where there's pods they can get back to the surface, emergency pods, and they're going there and they only have so much. They have it's like a 1,400 kilometer or they have so many minutes of air left, and they're going there and then they get picked off one by one. They're in the dark. They're using, they can't, all they have is little harpoon guns.
Yeah.
And then you're like, what's getting them? And then when you see it, it's like these piranha fish.
Yeah.
And it's like, and it's just like, and then it's so intense. They finally get in, they go to the thing, and the one girl, she runs out an auction, and as the door's ready to close, and her basically implodes her head. And the reaction, it was like that was intense. Like that was what I want for the whole entire movie.
I want a consistent tone for something like this. Be one or the other, because you showed me that you can do both.
Literally,
You can't do both and make it work like that.
Ghost of Mars is this, it is one tone. It's a suspense.
Yeah.
Constant danger. Not this or like, oh shit, no, we're gonna die. That's okay if it's like a one blinder thing. Not if it's like a constant thing. It's like just constant one other jokes. I mean, if you're gonna do constant one other jokes, then that's your movie. You have this danger and you have jokes, but this was more jokey than it was dangerous.
I did like the trailer where it says like same old friends, new chum or whatever, old chum. I thought that was kind of cool and campy.
Yeah.
And then, like I say, they give you the serious tone early on, and you're like, what? So for me, I look at this movie and I go, it's an improvement over the first one, but that's not saying much. And the whole Meg test early on here on Xtreme Movie Show, the idea was that the first movie had everything going for it: a big budget, international stars, some A-listers and from various countries, and the movie didn't do a damn thing. The CGI sucked. The lack of action was there, and what actually had sucked, in my opinion. This one, I thought parts that were better, but because they were inconsistent all the way through, I'm going to say it's a worse movie, but I've enjoyed it more. And I thought, maybe when they do a Meg 3, because I assume there will be one, maybe it'll hit on something and it'll work better. And the only other thing I could say is one could argue that they're getting away from ideas of the Meg because they had to bring in, the mini dinosaurs and the piranha type fish and other things, which is cool to me, but it means that they didn't sufficiently, use the Meg in the right way to me, whether it was for comedy or for the intense stuff like you were talking about describing, because that would work. The threat of the shark, we don't have to see it. We can just see it in the background a little bit while they're figuring something out. That would have been cool.
I'm looking at IMDb right now. It's the first movie has a 5.6. This is a 5.5. It keeps fluctuating between matching it, which I can understand because it's not much better. I enjoyed the first one, but it's not the best movie. It has a lot of flaws, just like this one. This one had a budget 139 million kind of estimate right there.
I expect more with that.
But the box office is 145 million. You know what though? You don't need a big budget. Look at Ma. Yeah. Remember that movie?
Yep.
That had a $5,000 budget and walked away with like 3 times as much. You don't need a giant budget. You don't need giant CG. You just need a consistent story that's good that people care. Like, I want to watch. Obviously they figured, what? It's a shark movie. People like shark. We're in the middle of Shark Week, or towards the end of it. We got Jason Statham.
It was a good time for it to come out. Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. And to me, it's just kind of like they're just banking on lazy writing. And you wonder why no one cares about what's going on with the SAG and stuff. It's like, keep striking. We don't care. I'm watching foreign stuff that's better.
Well, yeah, and the interesting too with the summer pretty much roll up. This is one of the last films that we had talked about on our summer preview of things that we're looking forward to seeing and maybe talking about, or at least some of us we had a different selection. So obviously with the Tom Cruise film Mission Impossible, it's Take My Money, and depending on what you like, of course some people see more films than others. you and I have a tendency to see a lot, but
Yeah.
we also look at Netflix and Tubi and other things too, old things as well as new. So I wanted to take a minute and kind of preview, because we're talking about the Meg here, but we're going to go ahead and call it and say that we're going to be reviewing the Demeter Sunday night. And the reason why I'm going to say that is because I think of the Demeter and I think of this movie not because they opened at the same time, but the
Mhm.
Meg was one of the last movies scheduled where it could actually make a little bit of money. Usually these August time releases are for crap films or ones that they just need to get out and there's no spot for them. And I've heard
Yeah.
anywhere for the Demeter that the budget's from anywhere from 30 million to a guesses of 90 to 100. I can't
Yeah.
tell, maybe we'll know in a week. But just the sheer look of the film, even though you've seen it a lot, it was interesting because I kind of wish I didn't know too much about it. But
Hmm.
what we've always talked about, a variation on a theme, is I think it can make a good film. And so this movie, the Demeter, is going to be about. There's a couple pages, maybe a small chapter in the original Bram Stoker's Dracula, where he's going from like his home place in Transylvania over to London, and he has to cross. Now, Professor Pixel, our young 20-something third musketeer, who's done a lot of things with me TV wise that we do. He and I have talked a little bit about Dan Kerr's production as a joke because he's the one that produced Dark Shadows, the TV show, which Pixel's the only person on the planet that's seen all episodes. And he and I did the revival earlier this year, and he loved it. He'd never seen it. Dan Curtis, you know, made the revival successful on TV because he was involved in the original. He also did his version of Dracula that had a Jack Palance in it, where there's a very good scene about the Demeter going over. But everyone online right now, and I don't know if they're younger people or what, are saying, "Oh, this is just going to be Alien on a ship." And like, well, one, that's not a bad thing because Aliens was way up there as far as great movies or Aliens or whatever you want to think of it. But two, I would go, well, Dracula was done way ahead of its time. So you could argue Alien ripped off Dracula, but it just what's interesting about this film is the way people talk about it is they say, you know what, we want to try to make a very scary Dracula, a very feral one, not what happened in the 90s, as you and I talk about when movies started to change, where serial killers are romanticized and being woeful and all that was like an in thing when in the 80s it wasn't. So i I just don't know how you can't find a better trailer than this. It gives you everything, a little glimpse of the monster, the fear in everybody's eyes, and here's the beautiful part about it. Just like with Tom Cruise in Mission Impossible, showing you the stunt a year ahead of time, getting you amped up for it. And the movie going, man, I don't know. And he's being told by his handler, no, you just got to go to a higher mountain. We know what it is. The same thing is happening here. You know everybody's going to die, probably, because that's what really happened if they're true to the source material. So it's going to have a really consistent message and some doom and gloom and things that bump in the middle of the night. And so it doesn't have to be like everything new. It's just a variation on a theme. And the Meg kind of almost did that here with some of the things they were doing. I thought, wow, they understood what I think they were trying to do with the Meg, or were more successful with it, but only in certain parts, and they didn't make a complete picture of it. So
No,
yeah,
and
Princess was saying in chat, and I agree, this would be one to say wait till it hits streaming. But the Demeter, and this doesn't happen often, I get amped up to go see it, and I'm really hyped for it. So I'll give the Meg credit. It was better than the first one, but it's still not a good movie at all to me. But it doesn't have to be to enjoy it. So this one was more enjoyable than the first, I would say.
yeah, I see this. I said the main problem that we've already been saying that everybody else is saying it too is that the whole thing with the Meg is the fact that it's went on too long and it doesn't know what kind of movie it wants to be.
Yeah, it's true.
It's the same as the first movie. The first movie, was is actually this is worse than the first movie. I'd say in that aspect.
You think so?
I think the first movie knew it was comedy and it was going with its and we had no expectations either too. Going
True.
into this, we already knew them. We already saw the Megs. We already knew expected to come from this, and then it went even further off course into uncharted water, sir. Um, yeah, but it's. I'm looking right now. You're talking about the Demeter. It's coming out this Friday, and people are saying, "Oh, it's Alien," and I'm thinking, even if they're right or wrong, who cares? Like right now, movies are flopping.
They are.
And I don't think the Demeter is going to have enough love for it. They actually make more money than than their budget is. I think it's going to come down to the point where it could be an awesome movie or it could be a dud movie, but people won't see it. People will rather either wait till it hits DVD or they just don't see it at all because they're too busy. Either they saw Barbenheimer, they saw
Yep.
both those movies,
Yep.
and they're like, "We're done." It's gonna go. It might this might just go under the rug, kind of like Equalizer 3.
Yeah, that's true. And I still like the trailer for Equalizer. It's Denzel. Like, you got to see it.
I
That's
of
the way I
course I
look
got to
at it.
see it. He could be 90 years old and kicking ass. I'd still want to watch it.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. Yeah. So, one of the things we'd mentioned too, the other night, Professor Brooks and I, was that, with Halloween coming up last year, we definitely tried hitting a couple different genre type movies. We did some Italian movies. We tried doing some obscure ones, some pop ones, some personal favorites, and all that.
Mhm.
So I, wanted to let the audience know that as ones of them come through, I looked up Byzantium, that I think Princess had mentioned there too. And I go, man, I don't think I've seen this, and I know the name and I've heard it, but I don't recall it. And it's a vampire film, and it'd be interesting if one night we did a conversation on, best vampire films, because Let the Right One In, the original one, and the remake's not bad either. It's fantastic.
I've seen the really bad Bram Stoker movies from the 2000s. They're like the straight to DVD ones.
Yeah, but I mean, Dracula Untold, we both liked. We covered that
Yeah.
here. But there's a lot of interesting offbeat things here. So we always try to cover stuff that either we haven't seen before, or maybe, an older film that does get much love. I know a few years ago, you and Pixel on your Friday night reactions did some of the original movies from the Universal horror movies. And I've always been a
Like,
big fan of the
like
ones for Hammer Horror.
what
And I know
was
we're going
what
to
was
cover
it?
probably a couple some of those.
Was it Dracula 2000? That sucked.
That's. I mean, yeah, if you're going to watch something.
Dominic Purcell, whatever his name was. Uh, I'm trying to think what my favorite vampire movie is. I mean,
But the point is
yeah,
that's a great topic, and this movie's only got me pumped for it. And it's weird that it's coming out here in August rather than beginning of the year when it was originally slated. When actually they've been trying to put some horror movies out because it's a nice time to catch it. Like Megan, believe it or not, around 100, 150 million, whatever it is. That's still like in the top 25 of movies
no.
that's made money this year, just in terms of that. So I don't know, and that's not a
It,
horror movie at
it
all.
is a weird time to release the Demeter. It should be released during October and be
Yeah.
and they should have it in black and white. Not
Princess is
this.
puking over there.
Yeah,
That's
it's
the
right.
beautiful thing about it, because
Yeah.
people be like, "Oh, have you seen? You got to cover Chopping Mall from the '80s." I'm like, "Yeah, malls, killer security robots. It's bad." Or there's one called Popcorn. Buy a bag, go home in a box, with some jokes about Iron Maiden, and it's horrible. But you would go see all these because there's so many of them. And it's like, that's one of the thing about the '80s, is there's all these really B-level horror films and action films, and once in a while you'd hit on a gem or one that would be pretty good. And there's one called Deadly Friend that Wes Craven did that's kind of but so, and now we're starving for it. Horror's on a bit of a comeback streak, and action movies not so much. But it's been an interesting year so far, and when we go to review the end of it at the end of the year, it'll be pretty cool to see what's going on with it. I've noticed, based on recent viewing, some people are tapping into some of the older stuff we did, like Hellstrom and Kolchak the Night Stalker. That never goes out of style. So there's a lot of good things to review, pick from,
Yep.
or listen or watch. And if you haven't checked it out, so we'll go ahead and my final thoughts again. Movies. It's almost on puke status, but I survived. Drinking heavily helps with that, if that you're so inclined.
If you're looking for a movie to fall asleep to at nighttime and you like the sounds of the ocean, the Meg 2 is great for that. Just make sure
It's not Enya, but it'll work.
just make sure you go to the bathroom beforehand. You watch it, because it is, you might have to pee in the middle of it.
All right, anything you need to plug? What's going on this week?
Like I said, normal Tuesdays and Thursdays, 8 p.m. Central, over on the Geeky Puppet Show. We talk about comic books coming up this week. Thursday's a follow-up stream, the books that we bought at the comic book store. We show them off, do sort of reviews for that.
Mm-hmm.
Fridays and Sundays, 7:15 p.m. Central, we have our reading. Usually, it's an old school comic book. A group of us get together and just ham it up.
Right.
We do 2 readings on Fridays and Sundays. So
Okay.
come here on Sunday for Xtreme. Watch us review the Demeter, and then come over to Geeky Puppet Show and have some fun.
I have not created the link for it yet, but we will be going about 6:15 before for about 45 minutes live, Professor Brooks and I, because I'm helping him punch his man card in certain areas. And part of that is watching every single James Bond movie. So we've been going in order, and it's been a while since we've done one with our schedule. So we try to do one every other month or so. The next one is going to be Octopussy from, I believe, summer of 1983. That we are going to go live at 6:15 to go through that. So that link will be popping up shortly, and then the
man.
Demeter will follow right after that.
Wait till you get to Vita Kill. You're gonna have Christopher Walken with you.
And I will mute him if he goes into that walking space. Yeah. So, but he does do it well. I give him credit. I don't know how that came about. That's equally scary.
It's Christopher Walken, you know.
It's scarier than anything in the Meg. All right, guys. Thanks for watching. Thanks for tuning in. Princess, glad you got a chance to pop in tonight and catch it too. I know we don't always agree on all our films, but hey, we just talk about what we like and don't like, so it's always a lot of fun.
Grady Street. What's new with girl on Grady Street?
Well, I noticed because you put it out there on Instagram too. There was several more retweets from people about stuff like that. And that's cool because that makes it a lot better when more people show up and everything too. That's really killer, and it always seems to pick up right when school starts getting ready to get back in session, and we get into the Halloween time and all that. It's like there's just so much to cover, and we can never get to it all, and that's what makes it fun. So, guys, we'll see you on Sunday night. Go ahead.
I'm down for a vampire stream talking about the best vampire movies.
I agree too. I think that's totally there. Yeah, and one day we'll do piranha movies because they need some love. All right, guys, have a good night. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. As always, stay extreme.
Thanks for watching, Verity, and everybody.